You are listening to the BBNI podcast, Journeys of Faith, Leadership and Life.
Welcome to the BBNI podcast. I'm David Penny, Engagement Officer and Training Lead at BBNI. Our object is to advance Christ's kingdom. We long for our children and young people to know, love and follow Jesus. We come together on this podcast to share journeys of faith, leadership and life. I'm joined today with Jamie Meaklim, who is no stranger to BBNI in any way. Jamie is the Operations Director for Made for More, a Christian organisation who aim to engage a generation of young people. So, hello Jamie.
Hiya, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. As I said, you're no stranger, but I suppose we're going to ask you a few wee questions just to get to know you a wee bit. Who's the man behind those amazing haircuts?
Thank you.
I was saying last night to my wife, she says, you need to get a haircut. And she said, I go, oh, well, I'm just letting I don't have time. But I've got Jamie in tomorrow from Made for More, and he has a really cool haircut. And I've often joked going, should I get a Made for More haircut like Jamie? But
I think you should.
do you know what she tells me? I'm not cool enough.
That's harsh.
So I'm not as cool as you,
No,
Jamie, but so I'll just stick with my boring haircut. But who is the man behind the haircuts? Tell us a little about your faith journey, family life, work life, and a bit of background on who you are, Jamie.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Lovely studio, and I like your haircut for the record. I think you pull it off.
Thank you.
Yeah, so faith journey, I came to faith when I was 19, not long before I turned 20. I look back on my teenage years and just very much see just an angry young man who was desperate to fit in, wanted to be popular, used sport and things to try and achieve that, but ultimately was quite lonely and insecure. When I look back at a lot of the silly mistakes that I made and the things that I maybe said, it was all built out of that insecurity. And then at 19, thankfully, I met Jesus. Wow. And my life was literally completely transformed from that moment. I probably went from a desire just to travel the world, to play rugby and to live a life all about me, to wanting to become a teacher. And wanting to use my love for sport to reach young men and let them know that God loved them. So that very much completely transformed, I suppose, where I was even going in my career. And I then went down the route of becoming a teacher. And I was a PE teacher for 8 years.
Wow. So you're even cool, you're a PE teacher.
I know, well, you know.
They're the cool teachers, really.
You can't teach PE or something, is not what they say. So,
yeah.
So, I loved it, and it was great. And, I got married to my wife, Naomi. We have 2 little girls, Isla and Lainey, who are 6 and 7. And, so we were sort of just plodding along, very much comfortable in life. I was working in the school up in Newcastle. It was pretty relaxed, to be honest, not too much pressure. But then I felt, God sort of saying to me, listen, there's something a bit more for you, and I'm gonna pull you out of that and put you into something different.
And that's, we're going to hear a wee bit about that, something different, because it really was incredible what you're now doing. So I thought I would look back and think about, the relationship between BBNI meeting Made for More. Bit of a love story, in that
Absolutely.
sense.
That's it, a bromance between you and Ryan initially, and,
yes.
then me and you now.
I know, and I was sitting thinking, I managed to look back on my diary and look back as far as 2020. So the 3rd of March 2020, I drove. Where were your old offices? I can't even remember
the
place.
Four Winds, just up from Farside.
Yeah. So I'm driving along and I can't even see what would look like an office. There was sort of shops.
Yep.
Yeah.
We were just in this, I don't even know, up space. We'll call it a space rather than an office above a shop and a coffee shop.
Yes.
And
I think I landed at the coffee shop going, I have no idea where I am. I hope I'm in the right place, but I'm meant to be meeting Ryan here, and let's hope that this is it. And there was a girl in the coffee shop that said, oh, Made for More up there.
That's it. Used to sending people our way, you see.
Yeah, so, and that's where it all sort of began. I met with Ryan at that point. I remember I had seen some of your work featured in social media, how you were doing stuff with youth groups, and I was really encouraged. And I suppose on my heart, I had been thinking at that time, I would love something around mental health for our young people in BB. What sort of resource could that look like? And I came across you guys, so I arranged this meeting 3rd of March 2020, just before COVID, because I even remember the conversation I think you guys maybe had links with some, was there like Irish hockey players or something at the time, and the Olympics was getting talked about?
Yep, that's right. I remember that. They were in, I think, the same day. And Ryan made a joke about, I hope the Olympics still happens.
I know, and when you think about that crazily now, you're like, the Olympics will happen. There's no way they'll be cancelled.
Yep, it was, little do we know what was about to happen then.
Exactly. So way back then, before COVID, but obviously it was just about to happen. And we drew up a bit of a proposal, and then COVID came along, and we sort of thought, well, let's just rest that, because we don't really know what we can do organisations-wise. No one had heard of Zoom at that point.
Yep, that's it.
And we sort of thought, let's let that sit, and we caught up. I remember doing a few Zoom calls with Ryan, and then catching up with yourself too on Zoom. And then we had an opportunity that presented ourselves with funding opportunities to restart. It was like a post-COVID recovery plan, even though we were nowhere near out of COVID at that point. But it was to encourage youth organisations, and we got some funding. And I had the proposal sitting, and we sort of thought at that moment in BBNI, this here is perfect for this. We dusted off the proposal, delivered over 50 sessions on Zoom, which at the time you thought was like, you guys done a lot on Zoom that year for us.
It was tight going. It is amazing to think back. Like, we were only a year and a half old as an organisation. Ryan had just come on board, and all of a sudden we go into lockdown, and we'd built an organisation, on going into places to speak to large groups of people in small spaces, and that was just instantly stopped. And all of a sudden, we are completely rethinking everything, creating workshops, quizzes, and spending every day and night on Zoom, trying to engage with young people, old people, and God used it. Like, it is amazing to think how God used it, but at the same time, it was a tough slog.
On Zoom with everybody.
It was a tough slog on Zoom.
And when we look back, it's like, how did we do that? Like, you delivered leader sessions, resource booklets, and I suppose the timing was right too, that, young people were isolated, and we had an opportunity to be able to reach them in their homes through BB, and using you guys for that project, and we called it Where's Your Head At?
Yep. And I loved it. Like, I look back in the times, think, that was painful, but again, God was so good in it. Like, I love the fact that God provided enough financially for organisations like yourselves and us to stay, open, and to keep working. And at the time of need, when those young men were locked in their homes and were wrestling with emotions and issues going on that they had no answers to, something as simple as an online Zoom workshop was able to give them some tools, some encouragement to help. It's just amazing to really think how God had that all planned out, because it would never have been our plan in our initial discussion.
Yeah, because we had a proposal, and we thought, well, we'll see if we can find some funder for this. Then everything happened, and it all came into place. So
it's amazing.
An incredible journey. And we've obviously since then continued this wonderful partnership, and we really value that. And, you guys come in continually to BB groups each year. We fund some workshops, and you're part of our Queen's Badge program now. So you're seeing guys at the top end of BB when they're completing their Queen's Badge. And for some, maybe heading off to university or different life paths. So it's great that we have you engaged in that.
And I'm still waiting, I have to say, I'm still waiting for the Made for More badge. I'm still waiting for that to come off the production line.
Well, you never know.
I'm just putting that out there. If people want that, they're gonna have to, email in.
We do love a badge of BB.
I would love that.
So tell us a wee bit about what the heart and vision behind the organisation. You said you obviously were called by God from going into teaching, from being a teacher going into Made for More. Tell us a wee bit about the heart and vision.
Yeah. So as I say, I enjoyed being a teacher. Like, it was good fun, and it was for me pretty stress free. I enjoyed the lifestyle and being off at the weekends, and it's good summers and all
good
that
holidays.
stuff. I love it, but there was something in me that was stirring up. I describe it now and looking back as a holy discontent. From a cultural point of view, I was ticking all the boxes. There was a career there, a career path to make more money, to have more responsibility, but God was saying, no, there's something else for you here. There's something else I need you to do, and it's leave teaching. And that was quite a lot of prayer and discernment to try and understand what that looked like. And after years of really wrestling with that and praying into it, God made it clear to me that the issues that I was probably going to spend the next part of my life with, the season I'm in now, tackling, is identity and culture issues with our young people. I was seeing it every day in school, in church settings, in sporting settings, wherever I was, a whole lot of young people that had no idea who they were, why they're here. They had no understanding that a God had made them, that a God loves them. So as they wrestled with that, they were searching for hope and happiness in all the wrong all the wrong places. The typical places that we go to in culture, they're looking for it in drink, in drugs, in sex, and as they looked for it, as they didn't find it, then it would impact their mental health. Their self-esteem would hit rock bottom, and they would go through the whole cycle again. And as a teacher, I suppose my eyes were open to this every day, and also the gap within our education system of we don't have the space and the time and the resources to help tackle this. Teachers are doing so many amazing things, but they can't do everything. And I just thought that this is where God wants me to go. So Made for More was then born out of that ache that God put in my heart. Our desire is to go where young people are, no matter where they are, if it's on social media, if it's in a sports team, a BB, a GB, a school, a church setting. We want to go into that place and connect with them on their level. So we use creative teaching, we use fun, we use games, and we teach on identity, who they are in their faith, who they are in God, but we also help them navigate culture because we want to equip them with the tools they need to actually thrive in life and flourish. So that's the heart behind it. God then the last 5 years has just surrounded me with an amazing team. They're absolutely amazing. They're so gifted and talented, and every year we seem to do more and more. They come up with these new, wonderful, crazy ideas. But at the heart of it is always this idea of where are the young people at?
Yeah.
How do we reach them and how do we love them well? So it's been a blast. It can be stressful at times.
Yeah, but I love your
it.
heart and vision there, of where are young people at? How can we do the best we can for them? And
yeah, it's just something God's been putting in my heart recently. Like, as I've been reading through the Gospels, we have a God that isn't distant. We have a God that chose to send his son to come and walk and dwell among us because he's a God that wants relationship with us. And we want to model that at Made for More. So if we want to build relationships with young people, if we want to love them well, we can't then sit, in some office. We got to go to them and we got to be in amongst it, right? And sometimes that looks messy and sometimes that's frustrating. But ultimately, we know God's in control of that. So, yeah, me and the team, we absolutely love it.
Yeah, and you've mentioned there about how you're involved in delivering so many different types of sessions to young people, whether that be in a school or a BB group, church group. What are you seeing as an organisation, as guys from Made for More? What are you seeing as you interact with young people as the big challenges? What's the things that are the big headlines maybe for them?
Yeah, I think social media is obviously, and the whole screen time, smartphone is having a massive impact on them. They're the first generation that have grown up with a smartphone. So that's all they're used to. They're just used to constant screen time, and that screen time is just increasing year on year, and with it, so are the mental health issues. Because what they find, obviously, when they log onto their device is a whole world that is unfiltered in a sense, and they can access anything. You know what I mean? And it's so dangerous, whether it's just something like social media, TikTok and Instagram, where the whole trap of comparison is just killing their self-esteem. Or maybe it's pornography, which is just destroying, again, so many of their lives. It's this almost death by 1,000 cuts. And this cycle just continues. So I think social media is a big part of it, which just is chipping away at their self-esteem and their mental health. And then on the back of that, I think what we're seeing is a lot of young people making bad choices because they don't value themselves. It's very easy to start, taking drugs, getting drunk, having sex, doing all these things whenever you don't think you've any self-worth, because you just basically go, well, who cares? Who cares if something happens to me? Who cares if this is a bad decision? I might as well just go for it because I don't have much value or worth. Maybe this will give me that. So a lot of what we're doing at the minute is, as we tackle all those different topics, we're actually trying to approach it from an angle of, do you know your life matters and has value? So if you look at your life through that lens, would you make a different choice?
Yeah.
You know, would you choose to maybe not just, take drugs because, you know what, I don't want to hurt myself? Would you choose maybe to drink less?
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to drink, okay, that's your decision. Would you drink less because you don't want to black out and potentially find yourself in a dangerous situation? So we're trying to, rather than telling them don't do all these things.
Rather than going in like a sort of educational rule book type session, you're actually exploring who are they, how do they value themselves.
And making wise choices. And our hope then is that as they really start to understand, wait a second, my life has value, like I matter. Okay, well, I want to explore that more rather than the things of the world, and even then when they go onto social media, maybe realize this doesn't make me feel good, I'm actually going to log out. I'm actually going to choose to follow someone different. So, yeah, I think as an organisation, that's probably the angle we're approaching at the minute. There's just so many things I suppose they're struggling with that you can't give them answers to everything. So we've decided to kind of go to the heart of it. Do you value yourself? We want to encourage you to, yes, I do. And because of that, then can I make some better choices? And that even relates to mental health. Like if you know your life matters and is important, you'll actually prioritize looking after it. You won't just ignore, your mental health. You won't just, let it deteriorate and slide. You'll actually be like, no, I got to look after this. I've got to protect this. So yeah, it's been cool to see that really land with young people. You don't always see the fruit of it because we're in and out, but you're
starting a conversation and allowing them to be open and talk about it.
And you hope the conversations continue with the teachers, the youth leaders, the BB leaders. But I have to say, having delivered quite a few workshops over the last week myself, when you're talking about this, you can see it landing. You can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their face that it's landing, and we just hope and pray that God just really, uses that to transform their lives.
Yeah. And to carry on with that, obviously you mentioned mental health there, and Boys Brigade, obviously we work with over 11,000 boys, young people, and mental health is a big thing for young men, and I suppose that's what draws us to sort of partner with you in the first place. I think it's allowing that opportunity, as we've said, to not go in and be like a rule book, but actually to allow them space to think about themselves, who they are, but actually talk about it too. I once was in a conversation where it was a friend of a friend who was trying to develop a men's ministry group, like the way you sit around and maybe think of a name for a men's ministry, or maybe your youth group. You maybe been in that situation where someone goes, "Can you name something?" and it's really awkward, rather than just saying, just call you fellowship, rather than
it has to be
impact or ignite.
Oh yeah, that's it.
But this here was a men's ministry one, and actually the example that someone said to me, we're going to call it Man Up.
Brilliant.
Which
that's just what we need.
Which is just what we need, because in a society that tells that men shouldn't maybe talk about their emotions, that that we should man up and move on with it. You shouldn't cry. You shouldn't talk to a friend. And I remember having that conversation with someone then, obviously, that they didn't decide to call it that name at all. They came up with something else. Can't remember what it was, but I just remember being struck by that conversation. Like, man up. Like, the world tells men that they need to be strong and they can't show emotion and they can't talk about these things. They need to bottle up. And we know that's maybe a stereotypical thing too, but have you, I suppose, Made for More is known for mental health. You've delved into, you do lots of other stuff there too, which we'll mention a wee bit, but coping strategies for mental health. And have you noticed, when you're thinking about men in particular, maybe going into BB groups, which you guys have been involved in over the last 3 or so years, has it been a challenge, do you think, for men, or do you think?
Yeah, I think we're really coming into a culture here in Northern Ireland that does have a history of man up, suck it up. Yeah. Even I was watching a program during the summer about the Troubles, and one guy really summed it up well. I think he said that things were so bad that we learned to just use humour to sort of laugh our way through things, here in Northern Ireland. And I think that's very truthful. We use banter to hide a lot of emotions. And I think as men, it's this idea of, okay, here, suck it up, man up, and just, have a bit of banter, laugh your way through it, and you'll be fine. And the reality is it doesn't work. Instead we have a lot of people in our older generation who have very, very poor mental health.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise that our counsellors are overwhelmed, not just with bookings from our young people, but from our older people who now are paying the price of ignoring it.
Yes.
And I think that's probably the big thing that I would say to young men and older men. Like we've been created by God to have emotion, and we have all these different emotions that we are God given, and that will come out at different times throughout the day in different circumstances, and we need to understand them. We need to be able to understand what they mean, what they feel like, and how to navigate them, rather than be like, oh, I don't like that one, let's push it down and ignore it. And I think, like in the Bible, I look at, obviously Jesus is an amazing example of someone who showed emotion, but King David, who writes the Psalms, like here's a man who, killed Goliath, one of the greatest kings Israel has ever seen, was a hero and a man of the people, a manly man, but yet cried out in the Psalms about his emotions and his deepest, darkest secrets, the pain he went through, but also the joy he went through. And I love that. And I look back, I would honestly say, even when I first started Made for More, I wasn't emotionally healthy because I didn't really understand who I was and how I handled stress and anxiety and anger and frustration. For me, I just had a one-track mind. I just go and I don't think about things. And over the last 3 or 4 years, God's really shown me that no, that's not how I've made you. When you get stressed, this is how you behave, Jamie. And the more you understand that, the more you can actually learn to trust me in it and to grow in it. So I just think, for all of us as men, we need to understand how God's wired us.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be angry, for example. I always say to the young people, it's so stupid when adults say, don't be angry. Sometimes there's a really good reason to be angry. Yeah. It's what we do with that anger, rather than lashing out and exploding. Instead, we learn to sit down and process it and talk about it. So I suppose the best advice I can give to young men as they look to navigate and understand their emotion is to pull other, maybe slightly older men around them, mentors, people that they can have conversations with. And what I've learned over the last few years is talking about my emotions really does help. And that doesn't just mean whenever things are bad. It's just consistently having someone to talk to. And again, I look at David, and King David had this group of men that he went through life with. He had Joab who would go and fight his wars for him, right? That's the guy in the trenches. Let's go. He had Jonathan, his best mate, who just loved him and was just there for him and was gentle and was kind. And then he had Samuel, this wise old head that would be like, David, you're making terrible mistakes. And that's a great model for us as men to be like, okay, if I'm going to navigate my mental health, I need to surround myself with people that can help, people that I can have honest conversations with. Because there's no quick fix. There are 5 steps to improve your mental health that we do with the boys that work. But really long term, it's actually realizing, okay, this is more about understanding who I am, more about understanding what's good health for me, what's bad health, what's my capacity, and who I can talk to. And I would just encourage anyone, listening to get your 2 or 3 people you can talk to and consistently talk to them. Don't wait until it all goes to pot. That's too late. Just start having conversations, even when you're feeling good, because out of that will come, different things as well.
I've heard, you've maybe heard this campaign before that was done around mental health where, they call it Ask Twice, where you ask someone like, how are you? Yeah. And they go, oh, I'm okay. I'm doing good, really good. But then the idea behind the campaign is to go ask twice, ask again. So how are you really doing? Yep. And I think you're right there. You've illustrated, all of some of the coping strategies and things there and top tips. And certainly, that's been really useful. If there was a leader in BB supporting or trying to support someone with mental health, what would your advice be to them if they're listening today?
I think you summed it up really well there in that idea of just ask, how are you? It's the simplest advice that we can give. The BB and all that you guys do, is an unbelievable way to look after boys' mental health. They're learning new skills, they're connecting and being physically active. Like, all of that's brilliant. But what we're still scared of, I think, as leaders, is that journey across the room to say to a young person who looks quiet, who maybe is acting out, to say, are you okay? Because we think that if they say no, we have to fix it. And we have to have all the answers. And we don't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We don't. Your BB leaders, the best thing they can do is to ask the question. And if the answer is no, I'm not and I need help, then their job is to simply signpost those boys on to where they can get help, speaking to their parents about it, and taking it from there. They don't have to have any answers. And I think that's what we're scared of. And I think as a culture, it's like, listen, if you don't have all the answers, then don't do anything. But as I always say in leader training, if you don't ask them, are you okay? Who will? Because like some of your BB leaders are the only people that are consistent in these boys' life who really do care. And if they don't ask,
100%,
no one will. And that's heartbreaking. So, yeah, that would be my advice. Just don't miss that opportunity to walk across the room and say, are you okay? Because that can honestly change a life. And it really can.
Yeah, really, really good stuff there. Jamie, lots of our BB groups have had the pleasure of you guys. You've already mentioned visiting them. You've done a lot of delivery on mental health sessions, and I suppose that's been a lot of the focus over those last number of years. But you do more than delivery about mental health, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, culturally speaking, we want to speak into the cultural issues. So mental health has been at the forefront. Self-esteem is obviously linked in there. But as well as that, at the minute, we're doing a lot on drugs, on vaping, on alcohol, and digital footprint, the impact of what you're doing online and how it can leave a footprint.
That's very interesting.
And that's really just us answering the need of schools who are reaching out saying, can you help us with this? So those workshops are all available to the BB. We don't have a one-size-fits-all model, so we try to adapt them and make them work for every setting, every age group that we go into. The thing that I love about the BB, though, is within that, we'll make it faith-based. So it's not just a random workshop on vaping, that the boys may or may not take something away from it and learn. Some of them may choose to vape or not. But what we'll put in throughout is this idea again that you've been created by God. Your life matters, and we want to teach you about Jesus. So I love that, because really for me, we could come and deliver a workshop on any number of things and it would be good, right? And it'll be fun and the boys will learn. But it's that Jesus bit then that is always in there that I love. And the reality is we could come and do the same mental health workshop, 15 times of a group. And as long as we always change the Bible teaching, for me, it's always going to have value. We're always going to get to tell them Jesus loves them. Jesus wants to know them. So, yeah, anything at all people are maybe looking for, just get in touch, even if it's just to come in and just teach the Bible. We don't want any of the cultural stuff. We just want identity and Bible teaching. I love that.
Yeah.
We're all in.
No, certainly if you're listening and have never ever had Made for More into your BB group, I highly recommend them.
They're missing out, aren't they?
Totally missing out. 100% are missing out, because they really are incredible. We've had them deliver on our officer training, we've had them deliver on Queen's Badge courses, and we've seen them obviously, as we've mentioned, are delivering across lots of BB companies. If you haven't had them, definitely get them booked in. And if you want more information on that, check out their website, madeformoreni.co.uk, or get in touch with them directly, or phone ourselves here at BBNI, and we can certainly point you in the right direction. In closing, Jamie, thinking about your journey, is there one piece of advice you wish you'd known when you were younger? So think way back. You're not that old.
No, not at all.
But we're very young,
Both, very young. I think in a faith, to stay on the faith element, it would be, your life is not yours. I was not created to glorify Jamie Meaklim, and as a teenager, that's what I attempted to do, and it just made me very unhappy. Now that I know that I've been created to follow Jesus and glorify him, it just makes every day that little bit better, more filled with joy. So I think just to realise that it's life changing. So I would encourage them just to realise, you've been made to glorify God and not yourself.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And before we wrap this episode up, what encouragement would you have us? So we have, as I've said, 11,000 young people across Northern Ireland that BB works with, and we have over 2,000 leaders that serve faithfully. don't know if you have a bit of encouragement for our leaders, for leaders and young people.
Yeah, absolutely. For the young people, just keep going. The BB, it's a safe place. It's a group of leaders that really love you and care for you. And that you can't take that for granted.
Yeah.
You don't get that everywhere, and I would really lean into that as much as you can. And yeah, be kind to your leaders because they show up every week. And for the leaders, don't underestimate what you're doing, because it might just seem like all you do is show up and the boys cause chaos and they're cheeky and they run around and you're wrecked and you do it again the next week. You really do make a difference in their lives. For a lot of these boys, you'll be the person that they associate with church, with Jesus. You'll be the person that they remember. And again, that can be life-changing. So don't ever undervalue or play down what you do as leaders. It's exceptional, and we've seen it as we go out and about. Yeah. There are some wonderful people out there doing an amazing job.
Yeah, and we really appreciate all of the work and ministry you guys are doing. I was expecting a bit of advice there that every 3 weeks you get your haircut as well.
Well, that's my mantra. Like, every 3 weeks, get a haircut, because you have no idea when lockdown comes and you can't get another one. Self-care, very important, David. You got a budget for it.
And you're just fresh from the hairdresser.
I got a haircut last week, and you know what? I can't wait for in 2 weeks' time. I'll get another.
No, that's great, and thank you so much for being with us today, Jamie. We do value everything you and the guys do at Made for More. It's a fantastic ministry, fantastic organisation. Thanks so much to you guys who are listening, and to Jamie again for joining us today. Remember, check out madeformoreni.co.uk, and we really look forward for you to join us next time, and we'll see you soon. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the BBNI podcast. Subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to joining with you next time.